We are going to continue talking about linear equations in this lesson. Just a reminder that you do have quizzes due this week. Please check Pearson for all of your due dates. So at the start of this week, we were talking about a linear equation in standard form. Today, we want to talk about slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the equation y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Now notice that m is just the number that multiplies x. It does not equal x. Okay. So the first thing we want to practice doing is changing an equation from standard form to slope-intercept form. The important thing to remember about slope-intercept form is that we always have y equals. So you can see in our first example, we're going to have to subtract 2x from both sides of the equal sign. As soon as I do that, I have y equals negative 2x plus 7. Notice that I've kept the term with x in front of the term with 7. That's the order that we use in slope-intercept form. Let's try part B. The first thing we want to do is remove the term with x. But remember, we're looking for y equals, not negative 8y. So we need to divide both sides by negative 8. On the left side, negative 8 divided by negative 8 leaves 1y. On the right side, remember that that negative 8 belongs to both terms. We can simplify both of those fractions. A negative divided by a negative is positive. Divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. 6 divided by 2, 4 divided by 2. Then I have a positive divided by a negative. That gives me a negative. And I can divide the numerator and the denominator by 4. 12 divided by 4, 8 divided by 4. There's the equation of my line in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. What is m in this first equation? Yeah, it's that number that multiplies x, negative 2. And b? Positive 7. What about in the second equation here? What is m? The number that multiplies x. And b? Negative 3 over 2. Good. Okay. Given the equation of a line, let's find the slope and the y-intercept. In question 1, we see that the slope is 3. The y-intercept is b. Pause your video and fill in the slope and the y-intercept for question 2. Pause your video again. Fill in the slope and y-intercept for question 3. Did you notice that you needed to change this to slope-intercept form? We need this to say y equals mx plus b. That allows us to see the slope and the y-intercept. If you didn't do that, pause your video and try it now. You should have y equals 3 over 2x plus 2. Now I can see that the slope is 3 over 2, and the y-intercept is plus 2. So whenever you're asked to find the slope and the y-intercept, make sure you change your equation to slope-intercept form, y equals. Pause your video and try finding the slope and the y-intercept for question 4. After you find slope-intercept form, we can see m, the slope. We can see b, the y-intercept. I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about parallel lines and perpendicular lines. Let's start with parallel lines. We see parallel lines everywhere when we look around. The sides of your table are probably parallel to each other, or opposite sides rather. A set of railway tracks are parallel to each other. The sides of your paper, opposite sides of your paper, are parallel to each other. The important thing to remember about parallel lines is that they have the same slope. Now they do have different y-intercepts. They also never intersect each other. So if you look at this picture I have, you can see that these lines have the same slope. They have different y-intercepts. And you can see that they're never going to meet. They're never going to intersect each other. If you look at these equations, you see that they have the same slope and different y-intercepts. These are parallel lines. Perpendicular lines are lines that meet or intersect at a right angle. They intersect at an angle of 90 degrees. This is known as a right angle. We show that by drawing a box at that intersection. This tells me that this is a 90-degree angle and that these lines are perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have slopes with a product of -1. That means when you multiply the slope, it will equal -1. There is one exception to that, and we'll talk about it. But we say that their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Opposite means that one is positive and one is negative. Reciprocal, well, we've talked about reciprocals. That's when you flip over your fraction. So let's look at these equations. Here we have a slope that equals -2/3. Here we have a slope that's positive, so that's the opposite, 3/2, the reciprocal. Let's call this slope 1 and slope 2. We said when you multiply slope 1 and slope 2, it should equal -1 if they are perpendicular. -2/3 times 3/2. Well, we can simplify before we multiply. It does equal -1. These are perpendicular lines. Let's look at question 1. Are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? If you were asked to verify this on a test with me, I would want you to tell me what the slope of the first line is. The number multiplying x. I would want you to tell me the slope of the second line. And then look at them. Are they exactly the same? No, they're not. So we know that they are not parallel. Are they opposite reciprocals? No, they're not. If I multiply 2/9 times -2/9, it equals -4/81. That tells me they are not perpendicular. So these are neither. They're not parallel, they're not perpendicular. Let's look at question 2. It's not easy to see the slope. That's because we need to change these into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Well, in the first example, I could see I need to divide every term by 5. I'm just going to write y equals on the left instead of the right. 3/5x plus 2. The next one, well, I need to subtract 5x from both sides, divide by 3, y equals -5/3x plus 1/3. Our first slope, 3/5. Our second slope, -5/3. They are not the same, so we know they are not parallel. If we multiply the slopes, we see that it equals -1. That means these lines are perpendicular. Wow, I didn't spell perpendicular correctly there before. Perpendicular. Let me fix that. You guys need to stop me when I'm making a mistake there. Question 3 looks interesting. X equals 3. I don't know. Do you know the slope? What does this mean? I hope you remember. If you don't, that just tells me and you that you need to go back and watch the video lesson about horizontal and vertical lines. X equals 3. That's the equation of a vertical line. Y equals -4. That's the equation of a horizontal line. Do you remember the slope of a vertical line? Do you remember the slope of a horizontal line. Now, clearly, when I multiply 0 times undefined, it doesn't equal -1. This is that exception I was talking about. Horizontal and vertical lines always meet at 90 degrees. They are always perpendicular. If you didn't know that this was a vertical line, that this was a horizontal line, if you didn't know the slopes of each of these, you need to go do more practice. Pause your video now and tell me in question 4 whether these lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. You needed to change each of these into slope-intercept form. We can see that our first slope is -3/4. You can see that the second slope is -3/4. They are the same. That tells me that this is a set of parallel lines. Let's pause here and pick up more in the next lesson.